Imagine sacrificing everything for your team, your body, your reputation, your peace only to watch your own franchise turn around and crown your biggest rival, the main attraction in your own house. Because that's exactly what people are starting to believe just happened in Chicago, and it's sending shockwaves across the entire WNBA. This isn't just drama anymore. This feels like betrayal. Angel Reese, the player who dragged the Chicago Sky out of a run, who took the hits, embraced the villain role, and carried the weight of an entire city on her back, is now watching something unbelievable unfold. Behind the scenes, decisions are being made, promotions are shifting, attention is moving. And somehow, it's all pointing toward Caitlin Clark. Not their player, the rival, the one coming into their arena and walking out like the main event. And fans are furious. Did they really just choose money over loyalty? Are they disrespecting their own superstar? Is Angel Reese being pushed aside in her own franchise? But it doesn't stop there, because while Chicago might be chasing profit, Team USA made the opposite mistake. They ignored the biggest star in the sport. And the result? A complete collapse. Ratings dropping, interest fading, fans tuning out. Two different decisions, one brutal truth. The league is losing control of its own stars. And if this is really what's happening behind the scenes, then this situation isn't just shocking, it's about to explode. This didn't start with one decision, it didn't start with one game, and it definitely didn't start with Caitlin Clark walking into the league. This started the moment attention in women's basketball stopped being equal and started being concentrated, because before the cameras, before the sold-out arenas, before the headlines and debates, Angel Reese was already building something in Chicago. Not just numbers, not just stats, an identity. She walked into a struggling franchise and immediately changed the energy, rebounding like her life depended on it. Talking, competing, embracing pressure instead of running from it. She didn't ask to be liked, she demanded to be seen. And Chicago responded. Fans showed up. The culture shifted. For the first time in a long time, the Sky felt relevant, but that relevance came at a cost. Because Reese didn't just bring attention, she brought controversy. Every move analyzed, every gesture debated, every post turned into a headline. She became the center of conversations that went far beyond basketball. Some loved her, some criticized her, but nobody ignored her. And through all of that, she stayed standing, took the hits, played harder, built her brand in the middle of chaos. But then, everything changed. Because when Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, the spotlight didn't just grow, it shifted. Suddenly, the attention wasn't spread across stars anymore, it followed one. Every arena sold out when Clark arrived, ticket prices skyrocketed, media coverage exploded. Teams that struggled for visibility were now front-page news overnight. Because she was on the schedule, it wasn't gradual, it was immediate and overwhelming. The Clark effect became REAL financial force. A cultural shift. A business opportunity too big for owners to ignore. And that's where the tension started building. Because now, franchises weren't just thinking about basketball anymore. They were thinking about revenue. Exposure. Growth. And for organizations like the Chicago Sky, that created a dangerous situation. Because on one side, they had Angel Reese, their identity, their energy, their homegrown star who carried the team through pressure and criticism. And on the other side, they had Caitlin Clark, the biggest draw in the entire sport, the player who could fill arenas, spike ratings, and generate millions in a single night. And suddenly, the question wasn't emotional, it was strategic. What matters more, loyalty or profit? And behind closed doors, decisions started getting made. Small at first, subtle, but noticeable. Scheduling changes. Marketing focus shifts. Game promotions leaning toward matchups instead of moments. And then came the detail that fans couldn't ignore. Barbie night. Gone. The one event that symbolized Angel Reese's impact. The one night that celebrated her identity, her brand, her connection with the fans. Removed. Quietly, no major explanation, just missing. And that's when things started to feel different. Because this wasn't just business anymore, this felt personal. Because while Reese was fighting on the court, dealing with media pressure, carrying expectations, her own organization appeared to be moving in another direction, one that didn't fully center her anymore. And inside that kind of environment, something shifts. Because players don't just notice what's said, they notice what's prioritized, what's promoted, what's protected, and more importantly, what ISN single quotes T. Which raises a dangerous question. If the Chicago Sky are willing to shift focus away from their own star, Then what happens next when the pressure gets even bigger? And then it stopped being subtle. Because everything that once felt like quiet business decisions suddenly turned into something impossible to ignore. It hit the moment fans realized this wasn't just about marketing anymore, it was about priority. Because when the Chicago Sky started promoting games, really promoting them, one matchup stood above everything else: Indiana Fever, Caitlin Clark. Not a playoff push, not a franchise milestone, not even their own star. The biggest energy was reserved for the rival. Ticket campaigns exploded around Clark's arrival. Arena adjustments started getting discussed. Buzz wasn't building around Chicago's identity. It was building around who was coming to town. And that's when fans snapped. Why does it feel like Clark is the main event in OUR Arena? Where is that same energy for Angel Reese? Are they really doing this right in front of her? Because now, this wasn't behind the scenes anymore. This was visible, loud, public. And the message it sent, devastating. Because whether intentional or not, it looked like the franchise had made a choice. And that choice didn't fully center Angel Reese. Then came the first shocking twist. The arena move. Reports started circulating that one of the biggest matchups, the Sky versus Fever, was being shifted to a larger venue. Not because Chicago was dominating. Not because the Sky were surging. But because Caitlin Clark was coming. And just like that, everything changed. Because this wasn't just promotion anymore. This was transformation. The Sky weren't just hosting a game. They were building an event around a player who didn't even wear their jersey. And fans saw it immediately. This isn't a home game. This is a Clark showcase. They just turned their own arena into her stage. This is insane. Because in sports, there's an unspoken rule. You protect your star. You build around your identity. You don't elevate the opposition above your own foundation. But here, that line felt blurred. And for Angel Reese, this wasn't something you could ignore. Because imagine walking into your own arena and feeling like the spotlight belongs to someone else. Imagine carrying the franchise through criticism, pressure, and expectation, only to watch your organization shift its biggest moment toward your rival. That's not just uncomfortable, that's psychological. Because athletes don't just compete physically, they compete emotionally, mentally, and moments like this, they stick. Then things got even more intense, because insiders started hinting at something deeper. Not confirmed, not official, but enough to raise eyebrows. Special accommodations, VIP setups, ticketing strategies designed specifically to maximize Clark's presence. And if even part of that is true, then this isn't just business. This is prioritization, clear. Calculated and cold. Meanwhile, inside the locker room, you can feel what that does. Inside the locker room, you can feel what that does. Because players aren't blind. They see the promotions, they hear the noise, they know what's being pushed. And once they start feeling like the organization values external attention over internal loyalty, trust begins to crack. Because if this can happen to Angel Reese, the face of the franchise, then what does that mean for everyone else? And that's where the situation becomes dangerous. Because now, it's not just about one player, it's about culture, identity, respect, and whether any of it still matters when money enters the equation. But just when it felt like Chicago had made the most controversial decision possible, something even bigger happened. Because while one organization leaned fully into the Caitlin Clark effect, another one did the exact opposite, and it didn't just fail, it collapsed completely. Because while Chicago was bending over backwards to capitalize on Caitlin Clark's presence, Team USA did something almost unthinkable. They left her out. Not reduced, not limited, completely off the biggest stage in the world. And the moment that decision became public, the reaction wasn't confusion, it was outrage. Because this wasn't just any player. This was the face of the new era. The player, driving ticket sales, breaking viewership records, and pulling millions of new fans into the sport. And somehow, she wasn't on the roster. The explanations came quickly. Roster balance. Veteran leadership. Fit matters more than hype. But nobody was buying it. Because on the court, Caitlin Clark had already proven she belonged. And off the court, she was doing something the league had been chasing for decades. Attention. Massive, undeniable attention. And yet, Team USA shut the door. And that's when the second major twist hit. Because fans didn't just disagree. They responded. Silently, but powerfully. They stopped watching at first. It was subtle. A slight dip, a little less engagement. Then it got worse. Exhibition games, a build-up to Olympic excitement started. Feeling empty. Social media buzz dropped. Highlights didn't travel the same way. And then the numbers came in, and they were brutal. Viewership didn't just decline, it collapsed. Where are the fans? Why is nobody tuning in? This feels different, because it was. The energy that had been building around women's basketball suddenly wasn't there, and the reason felt obvious. The main attraction was missing. Because in modern sports, fans don't just follow teams anymore, they follow stars, and when the biggest star isn't part of the story loses power. Team USA thought the brand was enough. They thought tradition would carry it. They thought the jersey mattered more than the name. And they were wrong. Because the audience made something very clear. They weren't watching for the system. They were watching for the player. And without her, they checked out. Completely. And that's what makes this moment so dangerous. Because now, two completely opposite decisions have created the same problem. Chicago leaned too far into the Caitlin Clark effect, risking their own identity, their own star, their own locker room just to chase revenue. Team USA went the other direction, rejecting that same effect, ignoring the moment, and paying for it with relevance. Two paths. Two strategies. Same result. Instability. Because the league is caught in something it doesn't fully understand yet, a power shift, and it's happening in real time because for years, organizations controlled the narrative. They decided who mattered, who played, who got attention. But now, that control is slipping because fans decide, viewers decide, attention decides, and attention right now belongs to a few key names: Caitlin Clark, Angel, Reese, and the tension between them is forcing every organization to make a choice. But here's the problem. Every choice comes with consequences. Chicago may be making money, but at what cost? Team USA may be protecting tradition, but at what loss? And inside the league, players are watching all of it. Because this isn't just about two stars anymore, this is about what matters moving forward. Loyalty, or leverage, respect, or revenue. Identity, or attention, and when those things start colliding, something always breaks. The only question now is, what breaks first? Because if this tension keeps building, if organizations keep choosing sides, if stars start feeling disrespected or overlooked, then this isn't just a moment, it's the beginning of something much bigger, something the league might not be ready for. And that's when everything spilled over. Because once fans connected both sides of the story, Chicago chasing Caitlin Clark's money, and Team USA ignoring Caitlin Clark's impact, the reaction wasn't just loud, it was explosive. Social media turned into chaos overnight. This league is lost. They don't know how to handle their own stars. They're either exploiting them, or ignoring them. There was no middle ground anymore, just frustration, because for fans, this wasn't just about one decision, it was about a pattern. A league finally getting attention, and completely fumbling it, and right in the middle of all that noise, Angel Reese. Because now, the conversation wasn't just about what Chicago was doing, it was about how it was affecting her. Fans started rallying behind her. Aggressively, she built that franchise. They're disrespecting her. She deserves better than this. Edits started flooding clips of Reese battling in the paint, taking hits, celebrating with emotion, carrying herself like the face of Chicago. And the caption was always the same energy. They chose money over her. That narrative, it caught fire. Because betrayal stories always do. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark's name was trending for a completely different reason. Power. Influence. Impact. Because now, whether she was on the court or not, everything revolved around her. Chicago's decisions, Team USA's ratings, fan engagement, it all pointed back to one thing, her presence. And that created another layer of tension. Because while Reese was being positioned as the one disrespected, Clark was being positioned as the one everything was built around. And even without saying a word, that dynamic fuels rivalry, because fans don't just watch games, they pick sides. And now, sides were forming fast. Team Reese, Team Clark, debates turning into arguments turning into full-blown fan wars. And once that energy starts building, it doesn't stay online, it carries into arenas, into matchups, into every possession where those two names are connected inside the Chicago sky. The pressure was becoming impossible to ignore, because players feel that energy, they hear the noise, they see the comments. Then when your teammate is at the center of controversy involving ownership decisions, it changes the room, even if nobody says it out loud. Because now, there's a question hanging over everything. Do we trust the organization? And that question, it's dangerous, because once trust starts slipping, everything else follows. Effort, chemistry, focus, and coaches. They're stuck in the middle, trying to demand unity in a situation that feels divided from the top down. Meanwhile, league officials couldn't ignore it anymore, because this wasn't just trending. It was defining the narrative of the entire WNBA. Defining the narrative of the entire WNBA. Not games. Not performances. Drama. Controversy. Power. Struggles. And that's not what the league wants, controlling its image. But it already is. Because once fans start questioning decisions at this level, it doesn't go away quietly. And just when it felt like things couldn't get more intense, when the backlash had fully exploded, when both sides were locked in, a new rumor started spreading, quiet at first, but dangerous enough to change everything. Because this time, it wasn't about marketing, or ratings, or perception. It was about something much bigger. Something that could force a decision no one is ready for. That rumor didn't sound real at first. It sounded too extreme, too reckless, too dangerous for any franchise to actually consider. And yet, the more it spread, the more people started taking it seriously. Because according to multiple whispers around the league, quiet, unconfirmed, but persistent, the Chicago Sky might be exploring the unthinkable. Moving on from Angel Reese. Not next year, not down the line, soon, possibly even tied to major roster moves, draft positioning, or a long-term reset built around something entirely different. And the moment that idea hit the public, everything exploded again. Because this wasn't just a bad decision anymore. This would be a franchise-defining gamble. Trade her, after everything she built. No way, they're that crazy. But then came the detail that made it feel real. Because people started connecting dots. The missing Barbie night. The shift in marketing. The increased focus on rival-driven revenue. The feeling subtle but growing that the organization was already preparing for a version of itself without her. And that's when the narrative turned from outrage to fear, because if a team is willing to reposition itself around money, attention, and external influence, then loyalty becomes optional. And once loyalty becomes optional, no one is safe. Meanwhile, inside the league, executives are watching closely. Because if Chicago actually makes this move, if they choose to separate from one of the most polarizing, marketable, and emotionally charged players in the sport, it changes everything. It tells every star in the league one thing: you are valuable, until something more valuable comes along. And that message, it doesn't just stay in Chicago, it spreads fast, because players talk, agents react, decisions get influenced, and suddenly, what looked like one team's internal chaos becomes a league-wide warning. And Angel Reese, still silent, no confirmation, no denial, no emotional response, just presence, just focus. But now, that silence feels heavier than ever. Because this isn't just noise anymore, this is direction. And when a player starts realizing their organization might not fully be behind them, everything changes. Effort feels different. Trust feels different. Every game starts carrying a different kind of weight. Because now, it's not just about winning, it's about proving something to the fans, to the league, and maybe most importantly, to the people who might already be planning to move on. And then there's Caitlin Clark. Not involved, not speaking, not part of the decision, but somehow still at the center of everything, because her presence, impact, her ability to shift the entire business of the league is what created this situation in the first place. And that's what makes this so volatile. Because this isn't just about two players, it's about a system that suddenly doesn't know how to balance them. And if that balance breaks completely, then this won't just be a controversy, it will be a turning point. The moment where the WNBA either figures out how to handle its biggest stars, or loses control of the narrative entirely. Which leaves one question hanging over everything. If the Chicago Sky really are considering this move, then how long before it becomes real? And when it does, who's next? And now, the pressure shifts to you. Because at this point, this isn't just a rumor, a headline, or a debate anymore. You've seen the pattern, the decisions, the fallout, and the direction this could be heading. So what do you actually believe? Did the Chicago Sky just cross the line, choosing money, hype, and outside attention over their own star? Or are they making the smartest business move in a league that's changing faster than anyone expected? And what about Team USA? Did they protect tradition, or completely misread the moment and pay the price for it? Because one thing is clear, this league is no longer just about basketball, it's about power. And right now, That power is shifting. Drop your real opinion in the comments. No neutral takes. Is Angel Reese being disrespected? Or is this just the reality of modern sports? And if this situation actually leads to a trade, does that change everything? Make sure you subscribe and stay locked in. Because if this story keeps unfolding, the next move might not just shock the league, it might redefine it.